Welcome to the Introvert Sisters, the podcast by introverts for introverts, hosted by Sharon and Lisa, two INFJs with a lot to say.
Hi, I'm Sharon.
And I'm Lisa.
And together,
we're the Introvert Sisters.
Welcome to our podcast.
Welcome, guys.
So we're going to kick things right off with our first segment, Introverts Uniting Separately. Just a reminder to anyone who's just tuning in, I'm in Barbados, Lisa's in New Jersey. So that's why we call our segment Introverts Uniting Separately. And sis, we got to talk. You're in the US, and I know that you followed that vice presidential debate and Kamala's performance. It's like every Black woman ever has wanted to say that. And she just walked that tightrope of dignity and firmness, right?
It was a masterclass. It really was a masterclass.
How to be a Black woman in a white world. That was what that was.
Well, I pray that her memoir, her vice presidential memoir, sending that one up to the stars. I hope that will be the title of it. I'm speaking.
Oh yes, has
right?
to be. To be.
Like that is her quote now.
That was just a moment. And everybody is just kind of adopted that. How many times have we been in a situation where somebody is trying to talk over us and we just want to say, I'm speaking.
I'm speaking.
And we haven't said it, but we feel like this is something we definitely have to say.
Yeah, because, we don't want to appear to be the angry Black woman. And of course, anything beyond like a complete flat line is perceived by the haters and the patriarchy and colonizers as being angry,
But anyway, so that was a moment that I know that we all enjoyed. We really, really enjoyed that. We really, really related. And I dearly hope that she is going to be the next vice president of the United States. And one day, please, the president.
Even better.
Even better.
I mean, I still hold out hope for Michelle, but Michelle has been consistent in saying that there's no way. And I get it.
But Michelle, I've already been close to the seats of power. I don't need to go any further. I want to live my life. I want to do me. Right? That's where she is. Okay. And then on another note, but similar, right? Talking of Black women, there's the whole LinkedIn situation.
Yeah, what's been going on with that, with the whole suppression, censorship thing? What's happening?
Well, I know we talked about this before. It's just that on every social media platform, and it's becoming more apparent on LinkedIn at the moment, Black voices are getting suppressed. People who are, speaking truth to power, people who are calling out what it's like to be Black in the workplace.
Right.
But people whose business is even diversity, right? But all of a sudden, people are not seeing their stuff. Some people are getting banned. And meanwhile, as always, the racists and the trolls have it all their own way. So Aaisha Joseph just released, I think yesterday or, very recently, in the last few days, she released something called LinkedIn, White Supremacy and the Raging War for Change. It's the second expose she's done on what's going on in LinkedIn. And this follows up her original calls for people to see what's going on and do something about it. She says, I have a brief quote from it. I believe that while LinkedIn may have every intention of creating an anti-racist organization, there are powerful factors, whether it be people, corporations, or LinkedIn itself, that are wholly resistant to this idea.
Right.
I don't know whether it's the algorithms, I don't know whether it's the management, but this thing is getting called out on a regular basis, and the responses have been weak.
Yeah, they've been weak. They've been performative. It's sort of, they're just trying to put band-aids over a gaping wound.
Exactly.
And we're not accepting the band-aid. First of all, the band-aid is the wrong color because it's not brown. Let's start there. That's a whole different topic. But we're not accepting the band-aid, and we are going to keep pushing back. We're going to keep fighting back. And I was glad to see that she wrote that, but I mean, to even call it an article is
it's doing it an injustice.
It's doing it an
expose.
injustice because it is a multi-page, excellently researched and
Absolutely.
cited expose
Absolutely.
that everybody should read. We're going to drop a link to it in the show notes for you
Yes.
guys, because
Yes, definitely.
it needs to be read. And of course, she is a bit of a LinkedIn celebrity, so to speak.
Yes.
And well, a lot of us of a LinkedIn celebrity. Wasn't she recently featured in New York Times or something?
She was. There was an article about the same issue.
Right.
And she was cited in it. And there've been a few articles coming out about that recently. And I feel like we might have to just do an episode soon on the whole idea of social media suppression of Black voices.
Yeah.
Definitely. So
well, that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have your own platform sometimes. Definitely use what's out there, use the Facebooks and LinkedIns of the world, but you have to have your own space.
You do. You really
even if it's a tiny space. Like, I mean, of course, we don't even have hundreds of followers, but we have followers, we have listeners, and
we have
just every little bit counts, and we have control over this platform.
Absolutely. We control our podcast. I control my newsletter. We use what we have to reach the people who are amenable to being reached. And if everyone does that, maybe we can effect change.
Yeah, it will have to be like a drip campaign.
Yes.
That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So switching gears again, the other thing that I've been up to is I tried to watch Lovecraft Country.
Okay. I haven't even tried. So what?
Well, here's
why didn't
what
it
I
work?
heard about it. I heard that it was about Sundown Towns.
Right.
Sundown Towns being those towns where if you're Black after sundown, you might not see sunrise. Okay.
Ouch.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and they still exist.
And they still exist. They still exist. Yeah. They existed a lot, I think, in the immediately after the end of the American Civil War and into the 20s and 30s and all through that whole period before the Civil Rights Movement. But they still exist. They may not have the signs because,
I still remember driving through some backwoods place in Georgia. And just, first of all, it was like something out of a set on a movie.
Yeah.
You definitely felt like you were in some alternate decade and era. And you felt it was a little after, it was dusk. It was dusk. It was dusk and it was dangerous. Like you felt it. You felt the danger in the air.
And dangerous.
And I was like, okay, you need to get out of here as soon as possible.
Yes. So I thought, okay, this is going to tell me more about this kind of experience. But then it added a supernatural element. There were creatures. And I'm thinking to myself, as I said to someone the other day, isn't it spooky enough that there are places where you could be Black at dusk and dead at dawn without having to add creatures from the beyond? And I just couldn't buy it. I failed to buy into it. I thought you could have done a whole series on Sundown Towns and I would have been watching it. I didn't need any other scary elements. That was already scary enough for me as a Black person to know that there were these places and to see how they operated. I made it to the middle of episode 2.
Ooh.
And then I said, I don't know where this thing is going. And so I looked at the episode descriptions and I said, no, I don't believe any of this. I ain't watching it. I'm done. And it's a shame, but there you go. So what have you been up to? And before you get into that, I'm just going to get very real with people. We are in the tropics. It is a hot day. So you may
by we she means her.
Oh yeah.
I am decidedly not in the tropics.
I'm in the tropics. It's a hot day and you might see me mop. Okay.
Yeah. So speaking of we are in the tropics, but by we she means her. As you can see, I am wearing
your fall clothes.
I am wearing my fall clothes. I have finally admitted that it is fall. I have my sweaters out. Making sure to pull out the Zoom call worthy ones. I've pulled out my Doc Martens. I'm always happy to see my Doc Martens, but my feet aren't ready for. Right. No, Martins are awesome. But they're a little too heavy right now. My feet aren't 100% ready for it, but the temperatures outside are saying that it is time.
Okay.
So, that's what I've been doing, sort of sadly pulling the warmer and warmer clothes out of the
Such a shame.
back, the far reaches of the closet. Yeah. And what I've also been doing is, because as you mentioned earlier, like there's a lot of heavy stuff going on,
Oh yes.
right?
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I've been feeling, pardon me?
Sometimes you need some light relief.
Yeah, I've been feeling overwhelmed and, just like it's too much. So what I've been doing is entertaining myself with Hood Internet.
Oh,
So Hood Internet,
What is Hood Internet?
because the name is awesome.
It
Name
is,
is awesome.
it is.
So it's an American production duo based in Chicago.
Yeah.
And the duo is Aaron Brink and Steve Rydell. And so they do samples of, let's say they pick a year, 1991, and they string together 50 to 60 songs of like the top songs from that year as a mashup. And they are absolutely amazing.
Oh, wow. I need to listen.
They're so good. They're so good.
I need to listen. And do you recognize all the songs, or is it just fun to
Oh,
sing
yeah.
them? Oh my God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish that I could play. I don't know if I can play it for everybody to hear, so I'm not going to try right now in the middle of recording. We have to test that out sometime, but they're absolutely amazing, very entertaining. And of course, because I think they have done from 79 to 94,
Okay.
right? And so like that's
prime.
That's our time,
right?
That's our time. I know. So every song, and it takes you right back to where you were, what you were doing, whether you're in school or not, who you're hanging out with.
Oh, wow.
Just great memories. Yeah, yeah.
Down memory lane.
Yes. So it is, the fountain of youth can be found on Hood Internet.
Well, we're going to have to share. We're going to have to share at least one of those links in the show notes, because I am sure that people are going to want to listen and relive those memories. That sounds like an awesome way.
It's amazing.
Just decompress.
Decompress, and they're all upbeat. You sort of just lighten the mood and just feel good. Just feel good for 5 minutes in the midst of the craziness that is 2020. I mean, like even 2020, I saw the other day, now there are some speaking of creatures, hairy monster, poisonous monster caterpillars. Like 2020 is this is a real thing. And when you see them, like it looks like they have like a really bad kind of grandma Sunday wig on.
Ooh.
And less hair, but they're caterpillars.
You don't need to make up creatures.
Right.
It's bad.
So yes, there's all kind of foolishness going on in 2020, and so Hood Internet is my antidote to that.
Okay. Yeah. That is wonderful.
So we're going to go into our main segment, which is in our world. And of course, we're going to talk about introversion. Big surprise. So this week, we're talking about why freelancing, and in particular, freelance writing, is a perfect job for introverts. And for those of you who don't know, both Sharon and I obviously are introverts, but we're also both writers. So we know of which we speak, of what we speak.
We do.
Yes.
We know of what we speak.
Yes.
All right.
So why is freelancing and freelance writing, why are they the perfect job for introverts? So first of all, we love working from home.
Oh, yes.
And we love having the freedom to work from anywhere. A lot of people have, in the midst of COVID, have joined that bandwagon per force.
Yes.
And are finding that, working from home is kind of awesome. So yeah, what do you think?
It is. It's just wonderful to be able to be in your own space. That's great for introverts, to set your own schedule, in an ideal world, to decide whether you're keeping the camera off on a Zoom call, you know, just to have that agency over your time and space. Okay. So that is a wonderful thing. And of course, you know, these days, you know, many of us are connected, not everyone in the world, but many of us are connected. So you can literally be anywhere you want to be. You know, I myself have done, you know, I've written from Bahrain, I've written from Mexico, from the UK, from different cities in the US, from Barbados,
So wait,
in the Caribbean.
hold up. When we went to Bahrain and then tell people like right? I'm like, she's just dropping Bahrain like casually.
This was years ago. I was working for a UK magazine. There was a conference happening in Bahrain. So they said, come and interview people while you're there and write content. So I did.
Bahrain.
That's also how I got to Mexico, which is less, you know, that's less exotic.
Mexico, yeah.
I mean, we love Mexico, but you know,
we love Mexico.
But you know, everybody in the States has practically been to Mexico, but you know, Bahrain is a little more out there.
It is for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so another reason why freelancing and freelance writing are great for introverts is because introverts thrive in solitude. We have a whole episode dedicated to
alone, but
we have an entire episode dedicated to why introverts love alone time. So opposite is big for us, and whereas a lot of extroverts thrive on the opposite of solitude. Introverts like solitude. We like being alone. We tend to work better when we're alone. And so just being alone in your home, and as you mentioned earlier, having a bit more control over your own space is it just works for us, right? Also, another point, we tend to be intrinsically motivated.
What does that mean, sis?
Don't I sound educated?
You sound very educated.
Don't ask me to define it.
I would like you to explain what intrinsically motivated means for the benefit of
basically it's just a fancy way of saying being self-motivated and being able to reward yourself and finding, not just reward yourself, but finding reward in the work of itself.
Oh yes.
Finding reward in what you're doing.
Oh yes.
More so, although everybody, of course, everybody likes recognition and congratulations and kudos, but we don't tend to need it as much. We are perfectly happy just writing and thinking, oh my gosh, that was an amazing sentence, and we're good.
Yes. And actually, that is a common writer trait.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you do a piece of work, you know, you write a sentence or a paragraph or an article, and you just know that you have hit the nail on the head. You know that it is writer perfection. You know, there are a lot of other times too, and it's not writer perfection, but you know,
yes.
You know, and that in itself, the fact that you are proud of what you have done is enough, right?
Yeah. I don't need anybody else to like it. If they like it, that's gravy. But once I'm happy with it, that's the important thing. And that is what, you know, that is what motivates us and what keeps us going and keeps us writing.
Exactly.
So yeah, what's another one?
Okay, so we alluded to this before. It gives us more control over our time and space. Okay, we, you know, as writers and as introverts, we don't have to be out there all the time. We can decide when we're out. We can decide when we're in. We can decide when we're taking meetings, when we're taking calls. It might interest you to know, in fact, my work calendar. I have 2 days set aside when I take calls, when I allow people to book, and for about 3 hours each day. And this is not to say that if I need to make a call on another time, I won't do it. For example, I have to interview someone and they're only available on one of the other days, but it definitely cuts down the bookable time.
Right.
And it hasn't hurt my business any, and it keeps
That's amazing.
Okay, so that's, you know, introvert heaven again.
Oh my gosh, yes, I love that.
Oh, wow.
One of these days, I can only aspire at this time. One of these days, I'm going to implement a similar system.
Absolutely.
And actually having more control over our time and space I think helps make us more creative. I don't know. What do you think? More creative and productive? Do you find that?
I would say so. I would say so because, again, well, we've talked before about, not liking open plan offices because of all the constant interruptions and so on. And that tends to really
Yes.
drain
We
away.
do have another episode about that too.
Yes, we have. And that tends to drain away your creativity and your
Yeah.
productivity. So I find that having control over time and space allows you to work when you're most creative, most productive, and therefore you get more out of your work day without
Right.
feeling overwhelmed, without feeling drained, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's another one? What's another one?
Kind of related to that because, okay, so we have more control over our time and space. We feel more creative and more productive. And in the midst of that creativity, we go into hyperfocus. And it's something that we enjoy. We enjoy sort of diving into research. We enjoy accessing that part of our brain that sort of silences everything else and allows you to channel only what is right in front of you. And it's amazing.
Oh,
It's a beautiful space to be in
it is
mentally.
Wonderful. It is wonderful. It is wonderful. And
Yeah.
sometimes hours can pass.
Yeah.
Then you come out the other side and you think, oh, wait, is it still daylight?
Yeah. It's like, it's almost kind of like a meditative kind of state.
It can be. It can
Yeah.
be. You just keep drilling down into a topic, and then you emerge, better informed and slightly disoriented.
Definitely disoriented.
But let you take the next one because I think this relates even more to you than to me.
Right. So I am both introverted and a highly sensitive person. So it's a combination that means almost any external stimulus can be stimuli. Do we need the singular?
Singular.
It can be either. It can be either, but we're not going to go down a grammatical rabbit hole here and get lost in hyperfocus.
Because we know that could happen.
It could happen. It could happen. Anyway,
we derailed one of our previous episodes doing just that.
I think we did. We've done that more than once.
Okay,
We've sidebarred for minutes. So yes, but I definitely require almost total silence in order to achieve that state of hyperfocus and to be able to get my work done. And that is simply, in most cases, not possible in an office.
No,
it just isn't. And so the work, working from home, again, you have control over your time, your space, your environment, and how much or little ambient noise is around. Now, some people can work with music, for example.
yes.
Some people like working, let's say, in a co-working space or in a Starbucks or something of that nature. Depending on what I have to do, I can do that. If it's nothing that requires that altered state that we were just talking about, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing like deep research or being extremely creative, then I need it 100% quiet.
I work best with quiet myself, though I wouldn't describe myself as an HSP. I can work with instrumental music, but in practice, I tend to keep it off. I just tend to keep it quiet. And of course, I work best without interruptions.
Right.
Like many people as well.
Right. No random drive-bys by your desk because you're working from home, which is amazing.
It is wonderful. It is wonderful. It is wonderful.
Yeah. So this next one, I'm going to toss to you because this is you.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Are naturally analytical and spend a lot of time processing thoughts. Introverts.
Who do I know that's like that?
Live a lot inside their heads, right? We live a lot inside our heads. There's always something going on, even if you can't tell from the outside. The truth is that we spend a lot of time thinking, and you can be doing one thing and another thought will randomly cross your head. One of the joys and the pains of all this technology is that it now allows you to follow up any random thought that you have almost immediately. So you can be sitting there having a conversation with someone and they will say something, will spark an idea, and you're there trying to be polite and your fingers are just itching to get to Google so that you can follow up that thought, right?
Exactly.
you're watching a TV program and and you pause because there's something that you have to research right this second.
Exactly.
And meanwhile,
And
when you finished, your brain is still in the background. You might be theoretically paying attention to the program, but what's really happening is that you're processing that information you just researched, right?
yeah, and research again, tying it back into the freelance writing thing, like research, of course, is a big part of writing, right? And moving on to the next point, a lot of introverts a lot of us process our thoughts better in writing than we do verbally. Absolutely. Now, I don't know do you find that? I know I find that for myself. Like I can barely get my thoughts out sometimes. That's why, anybody that is listening and watching this, hopefully we're both sounding a little smoother, but this podcast is actually a challenge for us. I suspect more so for me than for you, sis, because you had all those years of lecturing.
Yeah.
And so maybe you're drawing on that from that sort of muscle memory. I don't have that muscle memory. And this is a stretch for me, having to sort of process my thoughts verbally on the fly.
Yes.
And so so freelance writing is great for me because then I sit, I think, I go into hyperfocus, I do my research, and then I write.
I also think you're right in a sense that the lecturing experience has definitely helped me be a little more comfortable with this. But I also would say that I process my thoughts better in writing. There are all kinds of situations where you want to deal with a thing, not just in terms of actually freelancing. I know that I express myself well in the written word, which is just as well given my profession, right? As do you. But I also find that if I have a situation to deal with, it's very helpful to write down what I'm thinking and, almost write a little script, as one of my friends often suggests, so that, so that when I come to have the conversation, it is a little smoother so that I don't forget anything, because, I'm more likely to think of what I want to say in a logical order if I'm writing it down.
Yeah. You've given me that advice many times. And it's excellent advice to sort of put in the prep work. And if you have an important meeting or conversation or presentation, well, obviously, if you have a presentation, you're going to prepare, but you know what I mean? Yes. If you have just a conversation that for someone who is not introverted, they don't have to prepare for it or think ahead because their brain just works differently. For me, I definitely have to think ahead of what I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
I find that very, very helpful. Okay, I'm going to toss this one to you because I know it's one of your favorites. We also have an episode about this, just saying.
Okay, text, don't call. Text, don't call. That was from a few episodes ago. But yeah, minimal phone calls. That's one of the reasons why freelancing and working, freelance writing, working from home, all of that is great for introverts. I mean, you just said you literally have your schedule set up so that 2 days out of the 5 official working days, for a few hours each day, that's when you do phone calls. Yep. That's how important this is to us because we need it. We know, obviously, socialization has to happen. Phone calls have to happen. That is a part of the modern world. It is what it is, right? But if they can be minimized,
absolutely.
So much the better.
And I'll tell you another secret about that too. I have my calendar set up so that I have a couple of days notice of a call. Okay. Yes. So you cannot, if my call day is Tuesday, if you're booking on Monday, usually the earliest you can speak to me is Thursday.
Girl, I have always loved you, but I love you a little bit more right now. That is so awesome. That is such a boss. That is,
I have a 2-day buffer built in.
That is such a boss move, though. I love it. I love it. You're like, I'll have my assistant check my calendar and get back to you. And then your assistant is like, her next availability is Thursday at 3 p.m.
It gets even better. I have a calendar page set up with Book Like a Boss. People can go there and book. When they want to book with me, I just share the link. The buffer is built in. The call times are built in.
You don't need to talk to them at all until that time.
No, I talk to them, I talk to them when we have our appointment. I
That's
only talk to
amazing.
them if I always say, share the link. And then I say, if you don't see a slot that suits you, message me and we'll see what we can set up.
Right.
Right? Because, one has to be
I
available.
love it. Yeah,
But,
of course.
but by
Of
and
course.
large, I would say 95% of people can find a time that suits them in the available slots.
Wow.
Right? So
Amazing.
that works.
Amazing.
That works. Okay.
Well, all righty then. I'm
So,
like taking notes. Okay, so another big thing is what we term no energy drainage, which is to say that a lot of introverts can find too much social interaction a bit draining. And so again, being in our own space and having more control over our environment and minimizing phone calls, minimizing drive-bys by your desk, all of that stuff helps preserve your energy so that you actually have that energy to channel into your work.
exactly. Someone asked me the other day if I would ever consider going back to work in an office full time. And I said no. I mean, the words had barely left their lips and I already said no. Because, you do what you have to do at the time. Okay. I, in many cases, I enjoyed working with my colleagues. It was, in most experiences were fine. There were a couple,
Right.
but, I just thought, okay, no, I like being able to set my time, being able to set my schedule, being able to decide when I take phone calls, as you said, and it works better for me creatively, as we have talked.
Right.
You know?
Now, how have you found another thing is collaboration, right? Do you find that virtual collaboration is easier than in-person collaboration? Because I personally think that that's one of the pluses of, the whole freelancing thing is not necessarily having to do those, group collab session things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
By virtue of where I work, for the most part, that is all that has been possible. So people
True.
that
Yeah.
want to work with me, it has always been, I mean, at one stage it was, if you needed to, you hopped on a Skype call. Now it's, you hop on a Zoom call, or you do
Right.
something by email. And, email works for me because, again, I'm a writer. I express myself well in writing. And so when we exchange emails, for the most part, it's very clear what's going on.
Right.
It's very clear what the end result should be. There are exceptions. We can talk about those another time, but generally speaking, it works well. As you say, you have time to think, you have time to research, you have time to plan, and present your ideas in a reasoned and linear fashion.
Right.
And you can do this in writing, or if you have to have a meeting, you have it written down yourself and you have your notes by the side, and then you present that on a call. But definitely I find that easier. And
Yeah.
I guess because I'm such a writer person, I love having written notes of things. And often, when my handwriting is terrible, right? So often if I have an in-person meeting with someone and I scribble notes, I really literally have to transcribe them while I can still remember what happened. Otherwise, 5 days later, I may not be able to read them. And what I've done in more recent times is I will take my laptop with me and I will open a document and I will type the notes.
Right? Oh
Right?
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But honestly, virtual is good for me. What about you?
Yeah, virtual is good. And actually, in my current job, I've discovered a new tool called Miro, which is a virtual. Have you heard of it?
That name rings a bell. What does it do?
It's basically like a virtual. It is a virtual collaboration tool, and so you set up a project.
Yeah.
There's like a bulletin board kind of a thing, whiteboard kind of an experience. You can post. Let's say you're working on a project, and there's a project brief and reference graphics and that kind of stuff. You can post all of those at the top. And so, like, for example, recently, we were working on, let's say, a holiday campaign. So both designers and copywriters went in and posted some, some visuals, some campaign tagline ideas, that kind of stuff. And it's all there. And you can actually do it real time.
Oh,
You can do it asynchronously, so you can go in and just post your stuff,
yeah.
but you can also add to the board, like have a Zoom call or Microsoft Teams meeting or whatever, pull up the Miro board, and everybody can
That sounds
add to the board, and you can walk people through your idea that you have already had time to sit down and process and think through, as we were discussing.
that sounds wonderful, sis.
It's kind of cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Wow,
kind of cool, right?
that is good.
Yeah.
Good. That is good.
So I'll drop a link to it.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So another good thing for us as
Mhm.
introvert and freelance writers is that, we're good at social media in the sense that, I mean, that sounds counterintuitive because introverts social. But the thing about social media is that you don't have to be there in person, and
Right.
your
Yay.
interactions are written,
Yes.
right? We are writers. So,
We are writers.
in a
Captions, people, captions.
captions, and it's very interesting actually. So, sometimes I'm scrolling through Instagram, and, people have written like, virtual Insta blogs, and then,
Mhm.
the writing is so tight and so focused. And so, and I'm willing to bet a lot of those people are introverts, honestly speaking, if you check back,
Yeah.
right? Because they love the written word, they can sit in the privacy of their homes and come up with a perfect caption. I know you are awesome at that particularly.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good. So another thing, you sort of alluded to this. In general, why freelance writing, why that's good for introverts is because it gives us more power to say no. And I guess this is probably generalizable to everyone, really,
Mhm.
right? Working remotely, working from home, freelancing, all of that, it gives you more control and more power to say no, and no is a full sentence.
Oh, it is.
And so no, I do not take calls on this day. I take calls on these days, for example, right? These are the days when I take calls. Finance is allowing, we can turn down projects that we don't want to work on,
Absolutely. That's a big,
right? Which is it's great to have that control, because of course, if you are, a regular, an office worker,
Mhm.
you don't tend to have that much say in what you do or do not work on,
No, you get assigned
right?
stuff and you have to do it.
You get assigned stuff, you have to do it. If you happen to have a really good relationship with your boss, you might be able to weasel out of a couple of things, but generally you kind of have to do what you're told or what you're assigned, right? There's no need to manage people unless you want to manage people. You don't need to.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's so many ways that it sort of gives you more agency, and I love that.
That is the thing. And
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that. I've managed a couple of teams,
Mm-hmm.
both in person and online. And I've come to the conclusion that for the most part, that's not my sweet spot. I don't
Yeah.
mind, I don't mind collaborating with a few trusted partners. That's a completely different thing. But those are not
Mm-hmm.
people that I'm managing. That is a
Oh, that's
situation
different.
where everybody has agency over their stuff and we come together
Yeah.
to do something awesome, like
Mm-hmm.
us doing this podcast.
Yay.
Yes.
Right. And then finally, I don't know, do you want to take the final one? Go for it.
Oh, no small talk, no water cooler talk, no cafeteria
Yes.
talk, no awkward lunches, no interactions with people that you don't want to be around. So
Hallelujah.
another reason why freelance writing is introvert heaven.
Introvert heaven. Yes.
You know, you know, exactly. Text don't call, no small talk.
No small talk.
I don't even know
I see
anymore.
some t-shirts. I see some t-shirts and mugs in our future.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Oh my gosh. So that is really it for today.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you had as much fun listening to this, that you have as much fun listening
Yes.
to this as we have had recording it.
Yeah, we had a blast. So
You can probably tell. So we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you again for listening to the Introvert Sisters, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
bye.
You've been listening to the Introvert Sisters. Loved what you heard? You can catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major platforms. Subscribe, rate, and write a review. Find us online at theintrovertsisters.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Introvert Sisters. See you next time. Peace.